Okay, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon and good evening, wherever you are based in the world. Welcome to today's presentation on the 6 levels from manual to autonomous testing. We are going to go ahead and get started with today's session. So thank you in advance for joining us, and I hope this is a meaningful and learning opportunity for you all who have joined. So just to introduce myself, so my name is Lorna Smith. I'm a solutions engineer for SmartBear. I live in Galway on the west coast of Ireland, so that is where I am coming live to you from now. Unfortunately, the rain has sadly come back, even though we had such nice weather the last few days, but it's back to the normal rain. So any of you who have ever been here know what I'm talking about. So yeah, pleasure to meet you all. The agenda for today's session, let me just remove that, is we're going to go through the housekeeping items for the webinar. I'll then tell you a bit about SmartBear for those who are new joiners on the call, and then we'll run through the 6 levels from manual to autonomous testing. The housekeeping items are that the session is being recorded for any of you who would like to share this with other colleagues or need to go back over a certain area. Then fear not, the session is recorded, so you will have access to this. It will be sent in a link version in the next 24 hours. So keep a lookout for that. If you have any questions throughout the session, you can put them in the Q&A box. And I would ask for you to use the Q&A box rather than the chat, because this means any questions that we don't get to can then be followed up by our marketing team. Okay, so any questions, just pop them in the Q&A box. If I can address them during the session, I will. If not, we'll follow up with you after the webinar. And you can see there as well, just a note that the chat will not be monitored. Throughout the session, I'll also be asking for your engagement, just to make sure you're still awake and I haven't put you to sleep or anything like that. So I'm going to be launching some poll questions, and they'll just be a simple multiple choice kind of thing. We'll run through that shortly. In terms of housekeeping, that's all I wanted to run through. So without further ado, for those of you who are brand new to SmartBear, we are a global software company, and our aim is to help developers and testers build great software with the highest of quality and in quicker times than ever before. It's important to note that not only do we have a number of paid-for products covering testing from UI to API to test management, but we also have open source products. You may have heard of SOAP UI and also Swagger. So they are both SmartBear products. Again, sometimes people don't realize that they are SmartBears, but they are. And so throughout all of our products, we have a massive user base. You can see there are over 6.5 million users. So you are in good hands when you choose to go with SmartBear. And you'll find not only do you have our support to work through your issues, but you have the community support. So we have a really, really active community that love helping each other out and are really, really useful and helpful online. If you're coming through any specific scenarios, there's a good chance that your fellow peers are going through the same challenge or scenario as well. So that's just a quick introduction to SmartBear. I'm sure on the call we have people who are already using the tools and people who are brand new, so just wanted to level set with that. Okay, and again, just to give you a quick overview, these are not all of our tools, but these are some of the main tools. And as you'll see, we have them split into a couple of areas. So the top here is our UI testing tools. So these are all the tools that will help you perform your front-end testing. During today's session, we're going to take a look at Test Complete, which is our UI functional test product. So I'll be dipping in and out of that, showing you how you could use a tool, a test automation tool like Test Complete to level up with your manual to automation process. Below then, we have some of our API testing tools. So again, some of these you might be familiar with, some of you may not be, but this ranges from anything from designing and developing your APIs to virtualizing your APIs to doing your API functional tests, and also to doing your load testing. Typically, when testers start on their kind of manual to automation journey, as they get more automated and as their teams grow and they have more time to test more things, then we find that a test case management tool or a test management and planning tool is a necessity. So as you get through that journey, if you're looking for a test case management tool, we acquired Zephyr last year. And if anyone needs any demos of these tools, you're welcome to request a demo online. All of the tools you see on the screen as well, you can access via a trial through our website. So if you're curious about any of these, you can go online, download a trial, and start using it yourself. We also have very good documentation, so the learning curve is not steep. It's very easy to get up and running with these tools through our documentation, through our videos, and again, through our community. And last but not least, the integrations. So we pride ourselves on the integrations. We understand that every single customer and every single user of our software has their own unique technology stack that we need to be able to fit into, not to disrupt. We want to fit into what you already have. So you'll see if you are using our tools, you'll know we put a lot of emphasis on these integrations. So just bear that in mind. We're not trying to lock you in. We're not those traditional enterprise companies. We're here to work with your stack and be as flexible as we can be. Okay, so again, if you're interested in any of these tools or you want to learn more, we have these available online for trials, and you can also request a demo with someone on our team and we'll take you through the main features. Alrighty, so the first piece of interaction, we're going to launch this poll now. So I am interested in knowing what size teams I'm speaking to. So anyone on the call, I'm just going to launch this poll now. And if you could just take a moment to answer, it would be helpful to understand the size of the teams that we are speaking with today. Okay, thank you everyone who has answered so far. We're getting a mixed result. So I think it's 40% have over 10 people, 32% have between 5 and 9 people, and 28% between 2 and 4. Okay, so substantial enough size teams. And thank you so much for everyone who voted. 86 out of 102 voted, so that's great. Great to have that interaction. And again, this just helps us craft our content and craft our products. You know, if we know what type or what size teams we're dealing with or that we want to work with, this always helps us just create content for the next webinar or, you know, basically speak to the right people and the right size teams. So really, really thank you for that. I'm going to launch or end that poll now. So we'll just end that one. I can share the results with you here. So again, 41% had a team of greater than 10, 31% had a team between 5 and 9, 26% had a team between 2 and 4, and 2% are self-employed. Okay, so I will stop sharing that and we'll minimize that, make sure it's off your screen, and let's move on. So the content we're going to run through today are the 6 levels of manual to autonomous testing. We're going to look at the key automation features that can help you optimize at each stage or each level. As mentioned, I'm going to be carrying out a demonstration of our UI test tool called Test Complete. So as we go through the slides, I'll be switching back and over to actually show you this in practice. So it's not just theoretical. And then finally, we have some assessment criteria that I'd like to share with you so you can kind of address or assess how you're currently optimizing your own test automation tools if you're already using them. Alrighty, so let's dive in. Manual versus automation versus autonomy. So what I'd like to do, again, we're going to have people of all levels on the phone. So I want to make sure this is relevant and understandable for everyone. So we're going to level set with something that we're all familiar with and have likely heard in the news for the last couple of years. And we're going to start with the automotive industry. So, and compared those levels of automation to the software development levels of automation. So you see here, the Society of Automotive Engineers, they describe the changing role of the driver to driverless vehicles in 6 levels, starting from no automation to complete autonomy. And this is how we're going to run through today's levels when it comes to the testing and the software development lifecycle. So transitioning from these levels requires a change in regulations, infrastructure, and most importantly, mindset. And that will be probably one of the biggest challenges you'll face in your teams. It will be a mindset challenge rather than anything else. Most importantly, it demands that the technological approach is just as reliable and accurate as the regulations and infrastructure around it. Okay, so you'll see here on the left, you have the driver only. And then this moves all the way up until the fully automation. Okay, so I won't go into too much detail there, but hopefully that will help you understand what we're talking about. Again, this will not be news to you, but today humans and machines are going to need to work together so that we can provide scalable, stable, and secure capabilities. We're currently in a transformational era with the automotive industry. So right now, everyday cars aren't fully autonomous, but some everyday cars have automated features that are helping us more and more each day. So you'll see here in level 2, we have things such as cruise control, and that's been around a while. We then have adaptive cruise control, where if you caught up to the car in front of you, your car would automatically slow down with no intervention. We then have the lane keeping assistance. So if your car verges to the left or verges to the right, the technology will kick in and bring you back on track. Then, of course, you have the more advanced ones here, autopilot features and dynamic driving tasks. So these are some examples of how we're currently using technology and humans to work together to kind of have the best case scenario. And as we introduce more and more automation in autonomous driving, or in our case today, software testing, the need for reliability and accuracy is going to become increasingly more important. So let's look at this as it relates to software testing. So again, starting on the left, you have your level 1, and this falls into the monitored testing area. And this would be where the manual tester sits. We'll then move into level 2, which is your assisted automation, moving right through to partial automation and conditional automation. And you'll see the breakdown here of human intervention versus technology. And then how, as we move right on the scale, that these levels increase level by level. So again, just showing how this is going to be a mix. Depending on what level you're in, some of it's going to require more human input than other, and some of it at the end will be more automated than human. If you are a test automation engineer, you're going to need to consider 3 separate but related dimensions. So you've probably heard of these already. You're going to need to consider the accuracy of your testing, the ease of execution, and the ease of maintenance. And behind each of the levels we see in front of us, from manual to autonomous, lies key automation features that will help improve each dimension and your overall test automation strategy. And that's what we're going to go through in the next 3 slides. So as I mentioned, here are the 3 main things that we would ask you to consider as you go on your journey. And this will ensure that you have a solid, robust test automation strategy going forward. Okay, so we have another poll again, just to keep things lively and active. So I'm going to navigate to my polls here, and we are interested in understanding what type of tester of you. So again, really keen to understand who has joined today, and whether you're a manual tester looking to automate, or maybe you are already an automation engineer and you're just interested in learning a bit more. So I've launched the poll there. You'll see there's a choice. What type of tester are you? Select all that apply. So naturally, you may not just be a manual or an automation engineer. You might be a mix of both as you go through your journey along the various levels. So we've got some good results coming in. It's currently tight between the manual tester at 48% and the automation engineer at 40%. I'll just give it one more moment here before I end the poll. And we have 99 respondents, so that's wonderful. So I'm going to end the poll and I'll share the results with you. And you'll see here that most people on the line are manual testers. So again, great to have you all together and to have this discussion with our peers and work together on the strategy going forward. We also have a number of exploratory testers. Automation engineers is the second most popular on the phone. And then we also have QA engineers, followed by QA managers and other. Okay, so thank you very much for answering that. I'm just going to stop sharing these results now and we'll proceed. So here's just a little bit of research based on some surveys we've carried out in the last year. 80% of testing is manually done today, and most of that is on the UI. I think a lot of the reason for that is just because it's the most obvious. And if you're not that technical, maybe you're just going to focus on the front end. This is what the user sees. This is what I want to focus on. You'll see then in the future, based on, our research and the current information that we have from our customers, we estimate that at least 50% of testing will be automated, and that will include mostly testing at the API layer. So you'll see how things are changing. So if you're currently a UI tester, it would definitely be a recommendation to start delving into the API world. Ideally, you want to be able to test both. API testing can be a little more difficult if you're not that technical. So always recommend to make sure you keep your eyes on both sides of the fence. Especially obviously if you're testing a web application, you're going to have a lot of APIs that need to be tested or virtualized. So just something to bear in mind. Okay, so let's look at level 1. So I think the survey said 47% of you on the phone are manual testers. So this is where you will fall into. As you know, with IT, there's no one strict definition for anything. So what a manual tester means to one company might be completely different to another, but we're just going to take kind of a high level definition here. And of course, this may mean something different for you, but we're just going to keep it generic for the moment. So in level 1, a manual tester typically is in complete control of the test scripts at all times. You're managing the tests and the scenarios. So you're doing everything. You're creating the tests, you're executing the tests, you're monitoring them, and you're working on the fallback scenarios when tests fail. So there's a lot of manual effort here. You're literally doing everything from A to Z with no help from an automation tool or an automation framework. Of course, last but not least, you're reporting all of your results of those tests to your test managers or to your peers or to whoever it is you're reporting to. So as a manual tester, this is likely what you're doing, and this is very onerous, and there's no room for you to kind of set things up and walk away from your desk and come back and look at results. You literally are testing every single thing. So probably one of the most difficult in terms of labor intensive. Level 2, so assisted testing. So all of you manual testers out there today, this is probably the next level where you're going to start investigating into. So this is where you'll start looking at an automation tool, and there are lots of test automation tools out there. Obviously, we have the Test Complete tool that I'm going to run through today, but there's a tool out there for everyone, depending on your need, depending on the application you're trying to test, whether it's web, desktop, or mobile, depending on the framework, the language. Again, there's a lot out there, and it can be overwhelming when you're first getting in there, but there's a lot of good resources available online. And my recommendation would be to always get a demo or a trial of the tool that you're looking to start using, because that will really give you a good idea of the look and feel, and also help you understand if the tool is more for a technical person or it can be used by anyone on the team. And do take that into consideration going forward, because naturally not everyone can understand script and they may not be able to script the test. So it's important that the tool can be used by your everyday tester. And also if a scripter or somebody with more technical ability wants to work with the tool, that is an option too. So in this level, assisted testing, the test automation tool can assist the tester in the creation or execution, but the tester is still required to manage your test scripts to ensure quality. Some of the automation features in the level 2 would be the use of the object SPY. So typically, the question might be, how do test automation tools assist the tester? So for example, in our tool, Test Complete, which allows you to test the UI on all types of applications, so web, mobile, and desktop, Test Complete accesses the objects through the DOM layer. So it's using the object UI SPY to recognize objects through available properties of that object. So that could be anything from the object name, a unique ID, the height of the object, the color, the size, etc. So that's just an example. It will then store those object properties in the name mapping or the object repository. And it also converts that into an alias so that it's an easy naming convention that you can work with. If you want to script, then you can easily call and interact the objects. It's not some really long name that is very difficult to work with. In Test Complete, you can also use the keyword test, and I'll show you that shortly. So you'll see the next bullet point here is keyword-driven testing and the ability to convert to script. So if you're not comfortable with scripting your tests, you can actually use the record and replay feature, and it will record the steps for you and convert it into a keyword test, which is essentially a test that can be easily understood by a non-technical user. And I'll show you what that looks like. The option here is that maybe you record the test in a keyword test, but then you have a developer or somebody with more advanced knowledge who wants to or prefers to look at the script. You can actually convert that keyword test into script. We also have features such as the data generator, so you can use your test automation tool to create test and sample data for you. Maybe you don't want to waste time, or you don't have time to waste creating test data, so you can actually use the generator to do this for you. And then, of course, you can add various wait times between your tests. So you can add different parameters depending on your needs. You know, maybe you need a delay, maybe you need a timeout feature. So this is all the different types of ways of assisting the tester. Okay, so I think actually before I launch this particular poll, I'm going to go through and just start to show you the tool that I mentioned, and again, a lot of test automation tools will work like this, but I want to show you how you could do these features when you're moving into level 2. So I'm just going to jump here out of my PowerPoint, and the screen you're seeing now is our test automation tool called Test Complete, and it's a really, really easy tool to use, as you will see just now. And the first thing you usually do is start by recording a new test. So in this example, I'm going to click Record New Test, and this is going to record a keyword test for us, okay? So I'm just going to navigate to my website. Imagine the first step in your test is to launch your browser. You then need to navigate to your website. Now, this is just an example of a web test on a simple shopping store that I have, but maybe this is your desktop application or your mobile application. Either way, the step is just click Record. The Test Complete recording widget will appear here. So this shows that we're actively recording. And then you just carry on with your steps as normal. So you don't need to do any kind of intervention. Let's just go ahead and work through our steps. I'll just log in here to my website. And then maybe my next step is to purchase an Xbox. Have you got any Halo fans on the line? Because I love Halo, so I always use the Xbox in my example. And then maybe we'll just do a simple checkout and say, yeah, I want to make sure the checkout button works. And then let's just end our test there, log out and exit. So what we're doing is we're testing the functionality of our website. So once you click stop now, test complete is going to convert the steps we just recorded into a keyword test. And for those of you who have never seen a keyword test, this is what it looks like, okay? So it's really easy. It's a step-by-step account of what happens. So if I go down through the steps, here I clicked on my login, here I entered in this sb@test.com, and then I clicked on the password. And as you can see, as I'm clicking through each step, there's a corresponding screenshot. So this is really useful as it helps a non-technical user understand where you are at in the test. Because as you know, if this was just lines of code, it can be difficult to figure out where you are and what line represents what. So again, just to give you a tour of a keyword test, on the left, you have all of the objects that you interacted with during the recording. To the right, you have the operation. So maybe you clicked on something or you set a text. In the value column, you have the values that we entered. So we navigated to a website. I entered in my really difficult password, not. And then here is a description in plain English as to what happened during that step. So that's how you can record your test. The next thing is I want to make sure that this functionality can work over and over again. So you press run test and essentially it's now going to go through the exact same steps except I'm not touching the mouse or the keyboard, okay? So this is where the benefit starts coming in, because imagine you're adding new features to your application and you want to do your regression testing. Naturally, it's a lot of time to go and manually retest everything. So having a test automation tool like this saves your team a huge amount of time. So it's actually run through that test and you'll see here on the left, it's created a log and this test has passed. And if we go into that log, we can again see step by step what happened during the test, the time it took to do each step. You have details down below for each step and each object. And if I go to the picture, in this case, you can now compare the expected image versus the actual. So when I say expected image, I speak about how your application looked when you recorded. And when we talk about actual image, it's how your application looked when you played the test back. So this is incredibly useful to troubleshoot any issues. And if you were to manually try and take screenshots and manually do this, it would just be far too much effort. So again, I just wanted to show you how using tools like this can help and assist the manual tester. I mentioned earlier using the object and the name mapping repository. So here, if I click on name mapping, my test automation tool has actually mapped out my application. So if I start expanding this and you start clicking, this is the object tree where it's captured all of the information of my application, okay? And what it's doing is it's using the properties. So you can see here for the login password, it's used the object type password box. And if you wanted to edit how test complete is recognizing an object or maybe customize the properties, you can do so using the edit functionality. So it's quite flexible. If we just go to edit the identification here. Now, bearing in mind, my website is a sample demo website, so there aren't a whole lot of properties, but typically like there would be a massive list here. And then you could specify, you know, I want to recognize this by this particular property, and you can move them back and forth, or you can add in custom properties. So yeah, just really, really simple. Now let's jump back into my keyword test. So I've shown you how to record and replay. I also mentioned the ability to convert a keyword test into script. So let's right click on my keyword, and let's just, before I do that, I'll give you a quick tour to the left. Here you have your folder of your keyword tests. You then have your name mapping repository, and then you have your scripts. So these are either scripts that you've recorded using this tool, scripts that you've converted from keyword tests, or you can also import other scripts. So like unit tests you may have done, maybe you've done some Selenium tests, you can import them here and add them into your tests and test complete. So Really, really flexible. You can also import SOAP UI tests. So imagine I had a SOAP UI test. I could just drag and drop it into the end of my, oh, there's no test in there, but I could drag and drop it to the end of my keyword test here, run them all together and have both my UI and my API tests in one location. But yeah, what I wanted to do is just show you how you can convert this to script. So as I mentioned, this is a keyword test. A lot of people, or some testers or developers, prefer to work with script. And I can just work through my wizard here and convert that to script really easily. So you'll see here, I have line by line account, I have my comments, I have my screenshots, there's debugging functionality. So this is Test Complete IDE for those who prefer to work from the IDE. If you're wondering what language the script is, it depends on what you select up front. So we support 7 of the major languages. So JavaScript, VBScript, Python, C#, C++, and a couple of others. So yeah, we're well supported here if you prefer to work with the script. And as I mentioned there, the first demo, I actually recorded a keyword test. But if you don't want to work with keyword tests, you can jump right in and record a script. Okay, so that's a first look at how you could leverage test automation tools to assist your manual testing. Now, there's a lot more features and functionality I could go into here, but we unfortunately don't have time today. So if you have any specific questions or specific features you want to understand, then absolutely request a demo on our website and we'd be more than happy to tailor a demo for your own specific needs. Yeah, that's one of the downsides of doing a time-limited webinar. I can't show you all of the things, but hopefully we'll get to show you at a later stage if you connect with us. Okay, so I'm just going to jump back into my slides. So let me pause my share and try and make this as seamless as possible. Present from current slide, and here we go. So that was basically level 2 assisted testing, and we looked at the name mapping and the keyword driven tests and the converting to script. Again, I don't have time to show you everything, but if you're interested, absolutely request a demo with us. So at this level, this is where you're starting to define your test automation framework, and the more organized and comprehensive your framework is, the more robust and scalable your framework will be. So do put a bit of time into understanding what tools you want to use and how you want to work. We have a lot of good blog articles online. So on SmartBear's website, or if you just Google the different topics, such as like starting automation testing or how to start automating my tests. We have a lot of different blogs just showing you, how to choose the framework, the language, what test to automate. You don't just automate everything. You need to put in a bit of time and effort to understand what tests make sense to automate when you're first starting. And then also how you're going to organize your tests. Is it through a folder structure, or is it through tags or IDs, etc. So a little bit of upfront thinking, and that will help keep your framework robust and scalable as you grow and as you maybe share this framework with other parts of your organization. If you are a manual tester at the moment and you do work for an organization that has, a lot of testers or multiple teams, it would be really, really cool for you to be the one who's leading the movement to the next level and to drive this and then, have it replicated throughout your organization. It's a really good opportunity to further yourself in your own career and make a great name for you within your organization. Okay, so the next item on the agenda was another poll. So here we would like to understand what type of scripting techniques you use. So I'm going to launch this one here. And here you'll see you can choose from linear scripting, structured scripting, shared scripting, data-driven scripting, and keyword-driven scripting. So this is just to understand kind of from the technical users who are scripting, how they're choosing to doing that at the moment. So I'm starting to see a couple of results come in. We have around 30% of you who have voted, so thank you for those who have voted so far. Currently, data-driven scripting is in first place with 60% of people choosing data-driven scripting. And then we have keyword-driven scripting coming in second. So we have about 55% of you who have voted. For any of you who are yet to vote, I'll just give you another 10 seconds and then we'll finish off this poll and move on with the presentation. Okay, so I think the 10 seconds are up. I'm going to end this poll and I will share the results with you. So these are the results. Again, we're trying to help you understand what's happening in your own industry. We're not just trying to gather this to better our own company. It's just, here's an opportunity for us to learn what everyone else is doing. So you know, okay, I'm on the right track. Everyone else is doing this, or, just to give you a bit of an idea. Okay, so I will stop sharing those results and I will minimize my poll and we will continue through the slides. So I'm just going to do a time check. We have about 25 minutes left, apologies, 25 minutes left. So we are flying through this. The next level we're diving into now is partial automation. So this is where the test automation tool can take control of aspects of the test creation, the maintenance, or the execution. But at the end of the day, the tester is still responsible for monitoring the application to ensure quality. So this is just another level of automation. And you'll see here, these are the type of automation features that are associated with this level. So browser looping, this means running your test over multiple browsers. So for example, I recorded my test in Firefox and now I want to run it over multiple browsers. Then you have device looping. So maybe you have a couple of mobile devices that you want to run the same test over and you do not want to re-record or duplicate that test. You can insert a device loop. We have data-driven loops. And then we have intelligent fixes and updates. So this would be your test automation tool automatically recognizing that here's a suggested fix. So your test has failed and there's a reason why. Maybe the object property wasn't unique enough, or maybe, I don't know, a window got in the way. We actually have some intelligent fixes and updates suggested for you in our own test automation tool, and I believe other companies are starting to do this as well. So I'm actually going to just give you a quick example of a browser loop and a data-driven loop, because these features for me save massive amounts of testers' time. So again, for those of you who are looking to move from manual into automation, this would be a compelling reason too. So hopefully you can see my test complete screen now. And really quickly, I mentioned the browser loop. So here we have our keyword test where I did my test on Firefox. But hey, not everyone uses Firefox. So I want to make sure that my application can be accessed and the functionality of my application works across all of the browsers. So a way to do this is to select all of your keyword steps. So, and I'm just using Control A to highlight these. And that's another great thing about this tool. All the typical shortcuts you used to work. So you can Control Copy, Control Paste, Control Select All. And in this case, I've just selected all of my steps. I'm right clicking and you navigate to make browser loop. Here we have a wizard, and this isn't the first time you'll see a wizard in Test Complete. It's covered in wizards because, again, we want to make sure that if you're not technical, that you can easily add in these advanced automated features. Okay, so here it's in plain English. I want to either iterate through all my browsers or through specific browsers. If I choose specific, I then have the option to choose from other available browsers that I've installed on my machine. So I've installed these browsers and I'm just going to add them in. Click Finish. And now you'll see my keyword test has been rewritten essentially so that a browser loop is included. And if I clicked Run Test now, it would run my test first on Firefox, then on Chrome, then on IE, then on Edge, and then give me a lovely new log file here showing me the results of all of those. So that's really, really helpful to help you increase the confidence of your application across multiple browsers. So that's one way in the level 3 partial automation that a test automation tool could help you. The other way is through data-driven testing. So in my test example here, I just did a very basic login where I entered in a login email address and a password. But again, we know our application is going to have to handle a lot more data than this and a diverse subset of data. So whether that's various characters, maybe it's different string lengths. If you were to manually test this and manually go through the test with different data, it would be extremely labor intensive and you probably just wouldn't do it. You might do like 10 lines and be like, yeah, it works for most of them. But we know there's a lot more data out there than just 10 lines. So what we've offered here is data-driven testing. And again, it's through a simple wizard. And in this example, I'm just going to data drive my login password, but you might have an application that has a bunch of fields that require data. Maybe it's just address data or order data, whatever it is, anywhere you need to input data on your application, it would be a good idea to data drive that so you can test massive amounts of data and increase that confidence. So to do this, it's the same process as the browser loop. So you select the steps that you want to add your data-driven loop to. You right-click, you go make data loop, and another wizard appears. So I wasn't lying about the wizards. Now it's best practice to name this. So I'm going to call this name login loop. And then you can pick a data source. So maybe you have, a lot of data in a table variable or an Excel file. I have some test login emails and passwords in a CSV file. So I will select that. Just going to navigate to that CSV file. You'll see here I have my logins. Select next. And then I'm going to just separate it by a comma. So now my data is in its nice own individual column. Before I finish, imagine that your source file has maybe thousands of rows, and for the first test, you want to test 500, or you want to test the first 500. You can specify which data you want to run through in this test. Click next, and then this is where we changed what was the hard-coded value to a value in our data source. So if I navigate down to my login, which is the field that I want to data drive, all I need to do is select the drop down, take from my login loop data source and say, I want you to drive all of the data from my login column, okay? So that's very simple. And then you do the same for test. Just change that hard-coded value and take in the data from my password column. You can then click finish. And now a data-driven loop has been added. And previously where my hard-coded values were, I now have these variables. So now if I ran my test, not only would it run on the browsers, so that's increasing your test coverage by 400%, but then it would run with all of the various data that I have provided through my data-driven loop. So imagine you press run and you walk away from your desk and go down the street for a nice coffee, and then you come back and it's all done and you have all your results. That's kind of where we want to help you get to, okay? So yeah, that was just a quick overview of browser looping and data-driven looping. In the interest of time, I'm going to switch back now to the slides so that we can make sure that we get through the content that we discussed. So I'm going to resume my, excuse me. This is harder than it looks, I'm not going to lie. Trying to manage slides on a live demo. But regardless, we're moving on to the next poll. So I think this is maybe the second or third last poll. So I'm going to launch this. I'm interested in understanding, how do you distribute your tests across environments at the moment, okay? So again, this is multiple choice. Is anyone doing distributed testing? Are you already using CI/CD tools? I see we have a lot of people working with Jenkins. This is great because, well, if you're using SmartBear tools anyway, it's great because Jenkins actually has a free plugin for this tool, Test Complete, that I've been showing you. So you can actually create a build and schedule your Jenkins build to run your Test Complete tests and bring back your results into Jenkins. And you have all of the same results. And then, yeah, it just makes it easier for you to work with the tests and to align with your current CI/CD strategy. Just quickly, I did see one question there asking if Test Complete is open source or licensed. Test Complete is licensed, okay? But we do have a couple of different options for the API side. So for testing the APIs, we have SOAP UI, which is open source. And then we have SOAP UI Pro, which is the licensed version. So with the UI, it's licensed. With API, we have options, okay? Right, on this particular poll, we have 66% of you who have voted, so thank you for that. I'll end the poll and share the results with you. So you'll see 51% of you on the call are using CI/CD tools such as Jenkins. 36% are not doing distributed testing, 12% are, and some are using device farms, okay? So just good to understand again what people are up to and what your peers are doing. So I'm going to move forward and let's just jump to the next slide where we look at the next level of automation. So we're currently at level 4. And this is where we call conditional automation. So in this level, the test automation tool is in control of the test creation, the maintenance, or the execution. But the tester is still responsible for monitoring the application to ensure quality as long as conditions do not change. Okay, so this is where you have the likes of distributed testing, parallel testing, and working with your CI/CD pipeline. In the interest of time, I was going to show you distributed testing in our tool specifically. We don't have time today, but essentially what you can do is create your tests, build out your tests, and then you can run them on virtual machines in parallel, okay? So maybe you use your own laptop or your desktop to create the tests, but then you want to run them on, multiple virtual machines or other physical devices so that you're not using your own laptop. You can send them away, run the tests, and then, just go back to it when you want the results. For CI/CD integrations, for those of you who haven't delved into that world, I would recommend reading a few articles. It's kind of where most of testing is going to move into, and essentially just allowing you to build a pipeline to make your entire software development lifecycle as seamless as possible. And that will likely include a number of automation strategies and frameworks within that pipeline, okay? So when I say CI/CD, it's continuous integration and continuous deployment. So yeah, just something to bear in mind. If you've never seen this before, I definitely recommend having a look. And when you are choosing your test automation tools for your future level up, I would recommend making sure that it works well with other tools within the CI/CD pipeline, okay? And there's a lot online about that at the moment, so you should have enough resources available to you. Okay, so that's conditional automation. Another quick poll here is, how satisfied are you with your tool's ability to recognize UI elements? So this is for anyone on the call who is already using a test automation tool. We're interested in understanding, how is that tool's ability to recognize elements, okay? So I briefly spoke about how test complete recognizes elements using the various properties, but just want to make sure and see how you're currently finding test automation tools and what's working and what's not. Okay, so we have maybe 45% are somewhat satisfied, so that's great news. So it is working for almost half of you. You're satisfied with the object recognition. We have a lot of not applicables. That's probably because we have a lot of manual testers, so that makes sense. We have some somewhat dissatisfied and some very satisfied. Okay, so I'm going to close up that poll. I will share the results with you again, just so that we're all on the same page and we can all learn from each other. Okay, so you'll see the results there. Feel free to screenshot. But as you know, this session is being recorded as well, so you're always going to have access to this information. Okay, without further ado, let's continue here as we jump into the next level of automation, which is level 5. But before that, speaking on the topic of recognition, so a lot of you have said you're somewhat satisfied. we've noticed that AI, so artificial intelligence, is being introduced a lot to address recognition issues. So for those of you on the poll who answered that they were somewhat dissatisfied or dissatisfied with recognition, you'll see a lot of tools starting to introduce AI to address challenges and various gaps in recognition. Some popular use cases of AI, not just in software testing, is speech recognition, object recognition, that is in software testing, recommendation systems. So if you're ever wondering, oh, has AI ever come into my life? I think most of the people on the webinar know this, but Netflix recommendations when you're buying online, these are all algorithms that are a part of AI. So you are experiencing AI in your everyday today life, whether you know it or not. Another feature here, extracting information from text. And I'm actually going to give you an example of this now when it comes to test automation. Before that, I'll just make sure we go through the level first. So in level 5, we're talking about high automation. So you'll see there's quite a big section here of the dark navy, I would call that. So this is where there's more automation than there is contribution from the manual tester. And in this level, the test automation tool is in control of the test creation, maintenance, or execution, even when conditions change. So it's able to handle dynamic situations. It's not needing you to go in and say, oh, something's changed, I'm going to have to change my test in order for it to work. It's actually able to manage that change. And that's through features such as AI-powered visual recognition. And I'm going to show you an example of this, and it's probably an example you've come across it's a scenario you've come across in your testing life. And I'm going to just mention the word CAPTCHA. So CAPTCHAs are kind of built specifically to make sure that it's not a robot, using the system. But I have an example here of where we've actually used our tool to be able to overcome a CAPTCHA automatically. So a CAPTCHA is when, you try to log into something and then it gives you some jumbled up text and says, you need to enter in this text before proceeding. So I think we've all come across that in one shape or form. And so what we've done is we've leveraged the AI-powered recognition that Google has. So this is within our tool. So Google has some really, really advanced recognition because Google has so much data that it's able to make these assumptions based on character shapes, all the data that it has. So in our tool, we've actually leveraged that recognition, and I'll show you an example of how we've done this. So I'm just going to run my test here. And I'm hands off now. It's going to start tearing away on my step. So the first step was to log in to my website, similar to what we did earlier. It's then going to make a purchase, except at this time, it's going to ask for a CAPTCHA. And so automatically, it's going to recognize the CAPTCHA, and then it's going to enter in what it recognizes so that you can complete your purchase. So you'll see there, it's actually read 25 DDX and the ampersand, and it's put it in. And I've put a delay in there just so you could see it. I just put a 5-second delay. But you can see now it's able to successfully extract the CAPTCHA, capture it as a variable, and then use it in the next step. So I love that. I just think that's really, really cool. And it just shows you again how you can work with your automation tool to overcome manual and onerous steps in your test cases. Okay, just really quickly, I saw a question there asking if SmartBear integrates with Azure DevOps. Yes, it does. So it depends what tool. With Test Complete, you can integrate with Azure or VSTS. If you're wondering about a specific tool, then we can follow up after the call. But regardless, that was just a quick example of how we are introducing AI-powered recognition to be able to overcome certain issues like CAPTCHA, or maybe it's extracting text from a PDF. I know a lot of tools struggle with that. So through this recognition, we can actually read individual objects within a PDF, and you can do validations and checkpoints on those objects through this advanced recognition. This also allows you to test things such as graphs, such as mainframes, maps, certain SAP applications. So all of the things that have been traditionally difficult to interact with from a test automation tool perspective, we can do so by leveraging this AI recognition that Google have built. Okay, so I'm going to now go back into my slides here. And hopefully you can all see my screen. And the final level that we're going to touch on before we finish up is autonomous testing. So spoiler, I don't know what that is yet. So this is the future and this is what we're gearing up for. So for those of you who are at level 1, this is kind of where you're looking to end up in the next, I mean, it could be 5 years, it could be 10 years, depends on yourself, your own career and your own organization. But it is going to happen and we are going to get there. So this is why today's session was all about just helping you understand the various levels that exist at the moment and how you might go about moving up those levels over the coming years. In summary, I think I just want to cover off that autonomous solutions and software testing, it is still in its infancy. So if you are just starting, you know, that's absolutely fine. We still have a lot of manual testers out there. As you saw, one of our surveys had 80%. So there's still loads of time to get up to speed. Today, we're living in this autonomous chasm where we're trying to address the rapid change in customer expectations and technology. So everyone's kind of trying to catch up at the pace that technology is moving. And this requires that we marry the humans and the machine capabilities, which is why we are seeing so many more people adopting these automation features that we've ran through today. And when it comes to yourself, when you're thinking about automation, start to think, you know, how much of your application is tested at the moment, how much of it should be, what parts should be. And when you're evaluating your automation tools, ask yourself how much of the tool you are going to use. So that's where I'm going to speak about the assessment. So let me just progress on to the next slide there. Of course, it doesn't want to progress now. Ah, there we go. It's my annotation tool interfering. So yeah, as I mentioned, it's going to be a hybrid mix going forward. And these is just something to ask yourself. Now, when you're looking at a test automation tool, I'm not saying that you need to have all of these features, because again, it depends on what application you're testing and what are the tests that you want to automate. But these are just a little guidance that you could start doing a self-assessment on as you're evaluating your tool. So what's the tool's ability to automatically identify areas that have been updated? How can you manage and organize your test scripts at scale? So we don't have time to go through all of these in detail, but again, this session is recorded. So absolutely look back at this session, take screenshots as we go. I'm going to move on to the next slide. Again, in the other phases, such as test execution, reporting and analytics, and integrations, these are the areas that we recommend, you know, doing a check-in with, just based on what we've seen our own customers doing. And then here are some additional resources. So as I mentioned, we have a lot of online articles. If you're like dead keen now to start moving up the levels, then I'd highly recommend our Manual to Automating Testing Starter Kit. That's available online to you. As you delve deep into automation and you want to learn more about artificial intelligence for smarter testing, you can read our ebook here. And then if you specifically are interested in working with the tool that we kind of showed today to demonstrate automation features, then absolutely you can go online and get a trial of Test Complete. Okay, so it might be a good idea to quickly screenshot these links as well. So I'll give you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Great. And I believe we're coming to the end of the slide deck and just in a nick of time. So it's 10:58. So just because we've actually gone through so much, I haven't had a lot of time to go through the questions. So these questions have been saved if they've been in the Q&A box. So fear not, we'll be in touch with you afterwards. And if there's anything that we didn't cover today and you really need to know, absolutely just contact us online, request a trial, request a demo, use our chat, our Q&A chat, and we'll help you answer that question. Okay, but it is coming to the top of the hour, so I'm going to have to say goodbye. Thank you so much to everyone who joined today. I really, really appreciate the interaction that you gave me. I hope this was helpful and that you learned something from the session. And always keep an eye out for upcoming sessions. We're always talking about the latest and greatest and trying to help our community advance in their own testing, and also trying to help better ourselves as a company. Okay, so I'm going to end the webinar. Thank you so much again. Looking forward to hearing from you in the future. Have a great day and have a great week, and we'll chat soon. Okay, thank you.